The question landed like a quiet explosion in the glass-walled conference room, the kind that doesn't shatter windows but leaves invisible cracks in the chest. My CEO had looked at me with that familiar mix of curiosity and concern, and though her words were calm, they stirred something I had spent years burying. In that moment, memories rushed back with brutal clarity, and I knew my answer, though spoken gently, would cost her more than she expected. Some questions don't ask for information, they ask for truth, and truth has a way of breaking hearts, even when no one means for it to happen. Before the story pulls you deeper, pause for just a second. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and quiet sacrifices that never make headlines, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps stories like this reach hearts that are still healing. My name is Michael Carter, and I had built my life around control because chaos had once taken everything from me. I worked as a senior analyst at a fast-growing tech firm in Seattle, Washington, a city that thrived on rain, ambition, and the unspoken understanding that everyone was running from something. The CEO, Rachel Whitmore, was the kind of leader business magazines love to praise, sharp-minded, decisive, and unexpectedly humane. She remembered birthdays, asked about families, and somehow made a company of hundreds feel small enough to care. Over the years, she had become more than a boss. She had become a steady presence in my carefully structured world. From the outside, my life looked stable, even enviable. I had a respected position, a downtown apartment with a view of the water, and a routine that never faltered. I arrived early, left late, and filled my weekends with work or long walks through Pike Place Market, watching other people live louder, messier lives. What no one saw was the invisible weight I carried, the reason I avoided questions about dating, relationships, or anything that hinted at a future built with someone else. Years earlier, I'd been married to a woman named Hannah Brooks, a school teacher with a laugh that could turn the worst day into something bearable. We lived in a small town in Oregon before my career pulled us north, chasing promises of growth and security. We planned everything carefully, careers, children, a house with a porch. But life, as I learned too late, doesn't always follow plans. A distracted driver on a wet highway took Hannah from me one ordinary Tuesday evening, leaving behind silence so loud it felt like punishment. Grief didn't arrive all at once. It crept in slowly, disguised as responsibility. I told myself I had to be strong, had to keep moving, had to honor her by succeeding. I poured myself into work, accepted promotions, relocated, and built walls so efficient that even I forgot they were there. Dating felt like betrayal, not because Hannah would have wanted me to be alone, but because loving again meant risking that kind of pain twice. I convinced myself that surviving once was enough. Rachel noticed things others didn't. She saw the way I flinched when colleagues joked about office romances, how I redirected conversations toward spreadsheets and deadlines. She watched me volunteer for extra work during holidays and decline invitations that hinted at anything personal. Over time, her concern grew quieter but heavier, like a question waiting for the right moment. That moment came during a late afternoon meeting that ran longer than expected, when the city outside dimmed into gray and the office emptied around us. She asked what was stopping me from dating, not as a CEO probing an employee, but as a human being worried about another. I answered honestly, explaining that my heart had already learned what it felt like to lose everything, and I wasn't sure it could survive that lesson again. I spoke about love as if it were a beautiful risk I no longer knew how to take, about loyalty that outlived death, about fear disguised as devotion. I didn't accuse the world or fate. I simply explained that some doors, once closed by tragedy, feel impossible to open without tearing the house down. The heartbreak in her eyes was immediate and unguarded. Rachel had her own quiet story, one I only partly knew, a divorce that left her cautious, a life devoted to work because it was safer than hope. My answer didn't just explain my choices, it reflected her own unspoken fears back at her. She had asked because she cared, perhaps even because she wondered if there was room in my guarded life for something more. My honesty, though gentle, made it clear that my walls were not easily breached. After that day, something shifted between us. Not in professionalism, we remained respectful, efficient, but in the space where warmth used to live. Meetings became strictly about business. The casual check-ins stopped. I told myself this was for the best, that clarity was kinder than ambiguity, yet the silence felt heavier than any conversation we might have had. I realized too late that by protecting myself from pain, I had caused it in someone else. Weeks passed, then months, and life continued in its disciplined rhythm. But cracks had formed in my certainty. I found myself thinking about Rachel's expression, about the courage it took to ask a question that vulnerable, about how easily I dismissed the possibility that healing doesn't mean forgetting, and loving again doesn't erase the past. Grief had taught me how to survive, but it hadn't taught me how to live. Change didn't come as a dramatic epiphany. It arrived quietly through small moments. A widower at a community support group spoke about finding joy without guilt. A stranger at a coffee shop smiled and reminded me how simple connection could feel. I began to understand that my fear wasn't loyalty, it was avoidance. Hannah's love had shaped me, not imprisoned me. Honoring her didn't require permanent solitude. One evening, while reviewing reports alone in the office, I looked out at the Seattle skyline and felt something loosen inside my chest. For the first time in years, the idea of companionship didn't feel like a threat. It felt like a continuation. I didn't know what that meant for my relationship with Rachel, or whether the distance between us could ever be bridged, but I knew I could no longer hide behind loss as an excuse. Near the end of this story, if these moments of quiet courage and emotional truth are reaching you, please take a second to like this video, share it with someone who's afraid to open their heart again, and subscribe to the channel. Your engagement helps keep stories like this alive. Before we reach the final moments, I have one special request. Please comment below and tell us whether you believe love should wait for perfect healing, or if healing sometimes happens through love itself. I never did go back to Rachel with a confession or a grand gesture. Life isn't always wrapped up that neatly. But I did start saying yes, to invitations, to conversations, to the possibility that my heart could expand rather than break. And I carry the quiet hope that one day, if our paths align again, I'll be able to answer that question differently. Not with fear, but with faith that love, even after loss, is still worth the risk.